Hello again, everybody. This is Jason Nemro, and this is IS 301, Hardware and Software, the blurring. And this is going to be a multi-parter, probably. I think we're going to get to doing that a lot, so I hope you get accustomed to that and it doesn't make you too crazy. The textbook talks... All textbooks have to do this, and in the nature of doing this, you can lose a lot of the nuance of how things really are and how things are really going. And textbooks have to categorize things, break them down, and say, what I'm talking about is defined by this and not by this. Let me give you an example. It talks in textbook about spheres of influence. And they try to break software. Software is a squirrely little creature too, and as things get more software oriented, as hardware gets faster, as processors get quicker, we are able to transfer functionality from being totally hardware based, where it's really fast but it's really expensive, to software based, where it's less expensive and it's much more flexible, although it may be slower. It's getting to the point to where the slowness of software doesn't really matter anymore because the hardware can run it so fast you can't hardly tell the difference, so it doesn't really matter. And eventually, in these videos on the blurring, we'll talk about the fact that this is a motif in information systems in general, and it's very important to understand. And sadly, I think the textbook, in its need as a textbook to categorize things and chop them into little convenient pieces, chapters and section headings, and trying to help you understand what's going on, you're going to miss the fact that software makes it so you can cross all definitions. Here's an example. Sphere of influence, right? They say this is how you classify. This is one way to classify software. Sorry, just one way. Personal, work group, and enterprise. Depending on who uses it and what do they use it for and how much do they share. So they broke it up into convenient little things: personal, work group, enterprise. And those aren't unmeaningful separations, but they aren't clear at all. And the book makes it look like that it's like, oh, well, Lotus Notes fits into this box, and Microsoft Office fits in this box, and it goes through and it tries to categorize the software of the day, usually based on this thing, and it doesn't really work. In fact, it doesn't work at all. Let me give you an example. It's right here. The combination of Microsoft Outlook and Microsoft Exchange Server really straddles all three of those spheres and actually transcends them. I'll give you an example of this. I often have meetings with vendors. They're trying to do technical support on their software that I administer for the university here, Eastern New Mexico University. And so we have to set up things like web conferencing so they can see my screen. We can talk to each other. It's much easier than just trying to pass messages back and forth via email or however you want to do it. Much more useful for them to see what I'm seeing, sometimes even jump onto my computer and just start tippy-typing on my computer while I watch. Sometimes it makes it really easy. We spend a big amount of time with them trying to tell me what they want me to type, and it makes me crazy because it's a real waste of time. Anyway, so to expedite getting these meetings set up, they will send me a meeting invitation through Microsoft Outlook. And the funny thing is if you look at the spheres of influence, you don't have that you don't have a definition for that. That's outside of my enterprise. My enterprise is Eastern New Mexico University. Theirs is, let's take, for instance, our banner application, which is the database that a whole lot of the enterprise planning, almost all the functions of the university touch banner. And the company that produces it, through various buyouts, has become Aleutian. And they will send a meeting invitation to me, and it comes into my Outlook just as if it had come from any place else inside of Eastern. But it's not Eastern. It's a whole other company. And they don't have a term for that. It's not personal. It's not work group. It's not enterprise. It's beyond enterprise. It's being able to interface with a whole nother organization. And it's not difficult. It wasn't like this was so hard to build into Microsoft Outlook. It wasn't. It mostly had to do with ridding the mind of the programmer or the concept and saying, I have to just think this is just enterprise and I'm caught in this little box, although you do have to consider that for security purposes. But you can just say, I'll just accept invitations from anybody who comes around. The person himself, me, can just accept or reject these things. It's not a big deal. It just doesn't depend on Microsoft Exchange to say, oh, well, that's not in my organization. You can't do that with other organizations. Thank goodness smart programmers said, you know what? I don't give a flip about spheres of influence. I'm going to transcend them. Whee! So that's what it does. I don't know what the word is for that. Here's an interesting idea for you if you want to talk about this in discussions. It's not an assignment. Gosh darn it. I know that if it's not an assignment, you guys won't do it. Ugh. But why don't you come up with a name for that? I don't know. We have names for stuff beyond the enterprise, but I don't really know how you do that for productivity software. I don't know what the term is for that. If you come up with a cool marketing term for it, oh my gosh, you could start a whole new career just based on that. You'd be amazed how much gets done just by somebody coining a phrase. I know this guy. I don't know him. I've read about him. His name's Jared Lanier, and you might not have heard of him, but he was actually quite popular back in the late 90s, and he coined the term virtual reality. And you know what, to be honest, that's all he did. He just coined the term, and he went on the lecture circuit, and he ran that sucker. And he got paid a lot. He got visiting professorships just based on that. Oh, he's so smart. He understands what's going on. So you just never know when that's going to kind of come together. I'm still trying to come up with my magic term that makes me an amazing person in the industry and lets me travel the world and make, I don't know if he made lots of money, but he certainly kept fed. Although he had this Rastafarian sort of hair look, he was kind of a musician more than anything else, but he got sucked into this whole thing because he came up with virtual reality and he tried to use it. I don't know how much it got mixed up in his music, but those were the heady days when every idea was worth $1 billion before the dot-com bubble burst. Anyway, so here we go. As usual, I can spend 10 minutes talking about one slide. Heck, I could spend 10 hours talking about a slide, but I'm not gonna. Next video, next slide. This is all about spheres of influence. Thanks for listening.